Welcome back to Up in the Blue Seats, our New York Rangers podcast from the New York Post. Those highlights you heard courtesy of MSG Network. Jake Brown here alongside Mollie Walker. We'll be joined later in the show by the man who was on the call on the radio for the game on ESPN Radio New York. That would be the great Don La Greca. We'll be joined by our own Larry Brooks in just a few minutes. Mollie, old friends came to the Garden once again on Tuesday night in Revo and Zuccarello and Capri Sun. Not an old friend, but I kept hearing Capri Sun on the call. I'm sorry, I was getting thirsty. Capri Sun, that is Capri Sun. Sam Rosen. It really sounded like my favorite middle school drink. But a big win in a shootout, 4-3, and a couple of injuries here, key ones. Now, Gauthier was back at practice, but Chris Kreider, what's the latest on him, and how do the Rangers replace, their best player?
Well, Chris Kreider is not going to play against the Stars on Thursday, but the interesting part about this is Alexis Lafreniere will now get another chance on the top line on the left side of Mika Zibanejad and Capo Caco, which he's played with those two. He got a little bit of a stretch there, but it was very, very short-lived. Gallant didn't really seem that impressed with that trio after a few games and quickly split them up. But, I mean, there's so much to say about the whole Alexis Lafreniere situation, and we got into it pretty heavily with Larry pretty recently. But the Rangers and Gerard Gallant are just trying to get the most out of Alexis Lafreniere. And at the same time, it's a really sticky situation. And we've talked about this so much. I feel like we've talked about it until we're all blue in the face, but Lafreniere has not been afforded the same opportunities that a lot of first overall picks have around the league, or just even top picks in general, not even just first overall picks, but most of them are immediately put on the top power play. They're immediately put into the top six, and they are allowed to stay there for a significant amount of time and get confidence and rack up minutes. And that just hasn't been the case for Lafreniere. Now, of course, you can make the argument that the very person who can do something about that is Gerard Gallant, but then who is Lafreniere taking minutes away from? Who are you switching Lafreniere with on that top power play unit, which Gallant is understandably married to because it is one of the better ones in the entire NHL? So there's just so many moving parts, but I will say that it is just very interesting how Gallant has handled the entire situation. Obviously, it's a sticky situation for him, and one that he, doesn't seem like he particularly enjoys talking about. But in the same breath, I guess you can say, I mean, today when I asked him, just kind of talking about the obstacles of not having a guy like Chris Kreider in the lineup, who you said, Jake, is one of their best players, one of their leaders. But he turned the conversation to Lafreniere. No, Lafreniere's name was not mentioned, and he said that it is an opportunity for Alexis Lafreniere. But I think that's Gerard's old school approach of pushing the right buttons with Lafreniere and trying to motivate this young player who just hasn't really reached the potential that everybody thought that he would have this far into his career at this point, which is not even that far. It's just a little bit more slow moving than I think everybody thought. So I'm very curious to see how Lafreniere handles this opportunity that he's been given. I think it's a big spot for him. It sounds like he's going to be on the first power play unit too, which is a chance that he hasn't really gotten since he's come to New York. So now is as good a time as any for Lafreniere to do something with this opportunity, and kind of show that maybe he could be an option for the Rangers in that regard going forward. So we'll see. It's a headline, that's for sure. It's the first overall pick of 2020. I mean, this guy has to work out. I think Larry said something along the lines last time we talked about it. This was supposed to be the guy. So, and I still think that he could be, but he's got to do something with these little opportunities that he is afforded.
And we'll talk with Larry about that in just a minute. It seems like Rangers fans just want to kiss Lafreniere on the cheek, which was the big storyline from Tuesday night. I've watched that video about 100 times, Molly, of Ryan Reynolds, first off, next to Henrik Lundqvist. I mean, that is a GQ cover right there in the making. And apparently this is Ryan Reynolds' first Ranger game, which is like, you're a grown man. You've never been to the Garden, but he's a busy man making movies left and right. And then Alexander Skarsgård. Now, I don't watch Succession, so I don't know his work as well. Do you know Alexander's work at all?
No, I have not gotten around to watching Succession. I can't say that I have.
How great is that video? Like, yeah, one guy kiss him on the cheek, they bring him back the other. And it was good revenge for Henrik Knight when the Wild, beat the Rangers. This was a nice revenge and a fun moment. They always show these celebrities and they post them on Instagram. Sometimes I think they forget about posting some regular fans. It's always celebrities. But this one I was a big fan of because, three handsome men all getting along, enjoying some Rangers hockey.
Well, everybody knows that Ryan Reynolds has been considering purchasing the Ottawa Senators, or at least becoming one of the investors for that team. So I think that Ryan Reynolds is trying to up his hockey reputation, and who better than to sit next to Henrik Lundqvist at the Garden, where every time that man's face is shown up on the jumbotron, it gets a ravenous sort of response from the crowd. But who also got a very warm welcome to the Garden during the game against Minnesota was Ryan Reaves. And Ryan Reaves had a lot to say before the game.
Apparently you broke some news to Coach Gallant, and he caught him off guard.
Yeah, it was, look, Ryan Reaves, we said this to him in the locker room. He's always worth talking to. Always. He always keeps it real. He's always honest. He's an open book. And as a member of the media, that's really all you can ask for from a player. But he had some very interesting things to say about the way he departed from the Rangers. And there's also a lot of moving parts with this one, but basically what Ryan Reaves was saying was that he felt like there probably could have been better communication from the Rangers, coaching staff, management, up and down, just in terms of his role, his standing with the organization, and what was going on in terms of whether or not he was going to be traded. He basically said that, it was put out there that Reaves was the one who requested the trade. And he basically called that a half truth and a half lie. That once he approached the Rangers and asked them what his standing was, where he was with the organization, and they told him that he wasn't going to be playing every night going forward, his agent then found out that there was a trade with Minnesota in the works before he even approached them. So at that point, once Reaves heard that, he's the kind of guy, he said he's always lived by, you go where you wanted. So once he caught wind of that, he basically said, all right, if you're doing this, then you don't want me here, then get it done. And I want out. So that's kind of how it unfolded. And it's kind of a trend with the Rangers. I guess you could say that the communication between the front office and the players isn't always the best, especially for a guy like Ryan Reaves, who has come in and he was so well respected, so well liked, did a lot for the team's morale and camaraderie. Just a very valued guy in that room. He probably did deserve a little bit more respect in that regard. Especially for Gallant. We all know how Gallant feels about him. He says it all the time. He had him in Vegas. They have a pre-existing relationship. He thinks the world of him. We all know this to be true. But that should have made it easier to, I guess, sit Reaves down and just be like, look, you've kind of fallen off the depth chart a little bit here. We got to give other guys more of a look. We want a speedier kind of look for our lineup. And that didn't really include him. And the best thing about Reaves is he knows who he is. He's never tried to be anything that he isn't. And that's the real part about Reaves. But regardless, the Rangers did right by Reaves. They sent him to a place where he's also going to be valued, where he's going to play. He's going to be able to play the rest of this season and play himself into another contract going forward. All he wants to do is win a cup. He wants to get to 1,000 games. He still has goals that he wants to achieve in the NHL, and the Rangers set him up to do that. So all in all, the Rangers did do right by Ryan Reaves, but I think that it comes down to the communication thing again, which is something that I think the Rangers as an organization need to kind of reevaluate how they do things.
Well, let's talk about Reaves and everything Blueshirts now with Larry Brooks, who joins us. Follow Larry on Twitter, NYP_Brooksy. Larry, let's start with Kreider. I guess no updates yet, but how long do you see this potentially being, and how do the Rangers replace one of their top guys?
I don't know. Gerard Gallant said it was short-term rather than long-term. Does that mean one game or 1 week? It's impossible to say. Obviously, he's not going to play against Dallas on Thursday. I think he's probably iffy for Sunday, Monday. But again, we kind of in the dark. I think this opens up an opportunity for Lafreniere to get some minutes, to be put in a position to succeed, to jumpstart a season that honestly has kind of been a flat line for him. So I think, certainly, I mean, Chris is one of my favorite people.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, you never want to see anyone injured. But I think if it's a short-term absence, I think it could benefit the Rangers. If it benefits Lafreniere. Now, if Lafreniere struggles up there, then we're back to square one. But I think this is the time to get for Lafreniere to take advantage of this opportunity. And I think there are going to be a lot of eyes on him, as there always are. First overall. He's been talked about since he was 14, 15 years old. And the first 2.5 years have not been, I'm sure what he expected, what the Rangers expected. Yes, there are circumstances around it, but this is a good opportunity for him. So, the Rangers might actually benefit. Sometimes, even if you're forced to take a half step back or a step back, it can benefit you in being able to take 2 or 3 steps forward, and sooner rather than later. I mean, that's my view of giving some of the younger players more ice time, is that it might cost them a game. It might, it probably won't, but it might. And I understand how important every game is, and the race they're in. Making the playoffs this year is not optional for them. They're expected to make it. They need to make the playoffs. You don't go from conference finalists to missing the playoffs. It's not acceptable. So they need to make the playoffs. I get it. And you never know which game, when you lose, if you lose a point, is that going to keep us out? But I don't think you can be so tunnel visioned on every single game to say this is a must win, this is a must win, this is a must win. If hypothetically one of the kids contributes to a defeat, well, maybe in 3 weeks that kid will be the reason that you win 3 games. You have to allow players to make mistakes. You have to give players opportunities to grow. And I listen, we've been talking about this and writing about this since Lafreniere was drafted. Like, what were they going to do with their left wings? Were they going to stack their left wings? Who would they move to the right? I always assumed Lafreniere would move to the right, because I thought it would be a lot easier for an 18-year-old to switch than, say, Kreider, who had played his entire life on the left side, and Panarin, who had played basically his NHL career on the left side. So you say, okay, this is your first year, we want you to move to the right, and so that's kind of what I envisioned, but it hasn't happened. And if Lafreniere can't play on the right, I'm not sure what the Rangers are looking at. And but this hasn't snuck up on anybody. Honestly, I've been writing about it for 3 years. And and nothing's changed because he sometimes goes to the right, but he winds up back on the left. So I think this is a major opportunity for him, and I think it's going to be enlightening to a certain extent. He's starting from a standing stop. So I don't know what's fair to expect or not, but I think we need to see something from him. I think you need to see engagement. I think you need to see him battling. I think you need to see him around the net. I think you need to see him with scoring chances, because that line with Kreider on it over the last 4 or 5 games since they've moved up Kako has been a possession machine. I mean, they have the puck below the hash marks, for 30, 40 seconds at a time.
So good.
Last night against Minnesota, I mean, they could have / should have scored 4 or 5 goals in the first period. It was just dominant and into the second, but they didn't score. And so I think it's going to be on. There's some pressure on Lafreniere, but he should look at this as just a great opportunity for him to show what he has.
Jake and I were just
talking about Ryan Reaves's very interesting return to Madison Square Garden, and you and I had talked about, obviously, general managers, Chris Drury, have no obligation to tell players step by step when a trade is coming or in the works. And it was pretty known that, especially when a guy like Gallant, who we all know how he feels about Reaves and their relationship, the fact that he wasn't playing him kind of sounded alarm bells around the league that Reaves might be available. And they did do right by him, which I just got into a few minutes ago. But I'm just curious what you made of Ryan Reaves's comments.
Yeah, I understand he might have been, his feelings might have been bruised. I'm not sure exactly why. The more I've thought about it, he had the stand. I mean, he also had the standing to walk into the coach's office and say, "What's going on?"
Which it sounds like that's what he did.
Which sounds like right, but he was told he wasn't going to play every game. But when you get scratched 7 out of 8, I think you should be prepared for being moved. I don't know exactly what the beef was there, with Reaves, if it really was one, or if it was something he just wanted to say. I don't think the Rangers disrespected Ryan Reaves in any fashion. I just don't. They, in fact, probably extended his career, because one of the conditions of the trade from Vegas was that he get a 1-year extension on his deal. So that's what he was working on this year. And this year, he now has a chance to get another contract for next season. Who knows what would have happened last year? I doubt he would have gotten a deal for 1.75 if he were a free agent last summer. I don't think he's going to get a deal for 1.75 next summer as a free agent. So, I think he understood how tenuous his position was at training camp. I remember talking to him in training camp, and he said, and I asked him, "Do you think you have a job?" And he said, "Well, if I do, I'm going to keep it, and if I don't, I'm going to earn it." So, and he played early in the season, and it was difficult. He couldn't keep up, and even last night in the game, he had a couple of big hits, he had a couple of good shifts, and which is pretty much the way he played when he was with the Rangers. But then the second half of the game, I mean, I'm not sure how much he was on the ice, but he didn't play a major role. And the Rangers have other players who Gauthier has been an upgrade on him. Even Brodzinski to a large extent has been an upgrade on him. So maybe it was something he needed to get off his chest, but I don't think there's anything to second guess here. The way the Rangers dealt with Ryan Reaves, the way they treated him, so yeah, that's my answer.
You had a pretty in-depth column about Filip Chytil after the game. I mean, he had another really great game, scored the 3-3 goal. And basically you were just advocating for more ice time for him. Could you just tell us a little bit about your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think, there's been so much energy expended on how the Rangers should give more ice time to Lafreniere, how they should give more ice time to Kakko, how they need to be top 6 players. Well, Filip Chytil's the best of the 3.
Facts.
I mean, he's had the best season, and he has just progressed. He's also older and more experienced, so it falls in line. But he has been on an upswing, and he is where there is room for Lafreniere on the right and Kakko on the right in the top 6, if that's the way they want to play it, if Lafreniere can play the right. Right now, there is no room for Filip Chytil in the top 6 if they're going to keep Trocheck as the second line center. And what I would like, I think, I mean, and Trocheck, he's a Gallant favorite, knows him from Florida. He's a good player. He's a good player. He plays with bite. He's in on the puck. He does a lot of the things that the coach wants, that any coach would want. He's a good teammate. He's a good guy. But he's stopping Filip Chytil right now. I would like to see, and there were a few games here and there where Chytil got to play with Panarin, but I would like to see a line of Panarin, Chytil, and you tell me who's on the right. If you tell me that if you tell me that you want Barclay Goodrow there, that's fine with me. If you tell me that you want Jimmy Vesey, okay. If you tell me that it's going to be Kravtsov or Lafreniere, that's fine. But I want Chytil to get a run at second line center. That's what I want. Because if he is trapped, he's not going to stay. He's a restricted free agent this year. He's going to get a huge bump on his 2.3. Are the Rangers going to be able to afford to keep Filip Chytil? And if they do, how much are they going to wind up paying him to be a third line center who never gets on the power play because the second unit doesn't get on? An ongoing issue with this team. And beyond that, in 2 years, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. Why in the world would he stay if he's going to be the third line center? If he's locked in at the third line center? So I would like to see Chytil, get minutes as a second line center for now and for the future. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe you take a half step back, or a third of a step back. I don't really think so, but maybe you do today. But in 3 weeks, maybe you've taken 4 steps forward. So, I think they need to find Filip Chytil ice time because he is earning it. Every game he plays, he's earning it. The power play is a major issue because that stops these guys from getting more ice time, from getting offensive ice time, where they can work on their skills, where they can have a little fun. I mean, the power play should be fun. And again, the first power play unit isn't producing at a high enough rate to demand these kinds of minutes. Honestly, this first power play unit is underperforming. They should not be somewhere between 12th and 14th or 15th in the league, or whatever it is today. They should be a top 5 or top 6. With you've got Fox, you've got Panarin, you've got Kreider, you've got Zibanejad, right? I mean, they're loaded. But even last night, 2 power plays in the first 4 or 5 minutes. They don't score on either. They have a power play in overtime, just like they did in Tampa. They don't score on that. So, you get it. Power plays are kind of streaky. Most teams' power plays are streaky, but they're average. They're like they're an average power play off their production. They look really good. They look much, much better than that. These possessions where they hold it in the zone for a minute 45, but in order to demand these minutes, in order to be awarded these minutes, you would think they were a top 5 or top 6 unit, and they're not. And it just keeps the other. It there's a log jam for minutes, and it's not breaking because they're not getting their minutes. And so, I think that would be the first step. I also really don't understand why this first unit is inviolate. Again, they're not performing that well. Why you couldn't switch up personnel once in a while, I don't get that. I really don't. And it's not even, and even it's not as if Ryan Strome is still there.
Right.
When Ryan Strome was still there, that was a power play that at times operated at 25%, 29% over a 2 or 3 month period. They haven't been close to that, this year. And I'm not sure that I don't, other than the fact that he's a righty, does Trocheck deserve to be there ahead of Chytil? I don't know. I mean, again, Trocheck gets so much ice time. Kills penalties. He's on the first power play unit. He gets a ton of time on, now playing with Panarin. I think it's I think the way the coach is allotting time is kind of a roadblock to these guys. Does it help them win tonight's game? Maybe. Does it help them win a month from now? I'm not so sure.
My biggest thing with Chytil, and
I've said this to you, when looking at those three guys, Capo, Lafreniere, and Chytil's done so much more with so much less. Like both Lafreniere and Kako have gotten extended looks in the top 6, and Chytil hasn't at all. And with the players that Chytil has had to skate with, he's still found a way to make an impact on a game-to-game basis more than any of the other guys.
I mean, you notice him.
Yeah.
He goes to the tough areas. He's battling the corner. What I think his greatest improvement is his vision. Because I always thought he was really a prototypical winger, because I just he would carry the puck kind of into nowhere. Either he would score or the play would go the other way. But now he moves the puck, he sees it. He's his progression has been. I don't think it's been steady, because it's been up and down up until this year, but his progression starting with the playoffs has been dramatic, and I think he deserves more ice time. I think it's better for him, it's better for the team, and I think that's one. And I think I wrote it's a win-win. It's good for him, it's good for the present, it's good for the future, it's good for the Rangers.
Read Larry Brooks' coverage of the Rangers in the Post and nypost.com, NYP_Brooksy on Twitter. Larry, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.